Hello and welcome to our webinar today. Today we are going to discuss the components of any successful lesson plan for all English teachers. Hello and welcome again with our teachers in this webinar. Here is the title today, The Fundamentals of Lesson Planning for English Language Teacher. You are teachers and you are professional at teaching. So what I want you to do now is to write in the chat box some of the components of any successful lesson plan. Just 2 minutes or just 1 minute. Here are your responses. I can see in the chat box. Objectives, teaching aids. What else? I need more engagement from all of you or the participants today. Lead in, okay. Review, reflection. What else? Presentation, yes. Production. Drill, excellent. What else? Reflection again, reflection. Assessment, yes. What else? Wrap up, yes, we wrap up. Teaching aids again, teaching aids, okay. Presentation, key vocabulary, key structures, the outline of the class, okay. What else? Do you want to add any more things? Warm up, yes, warm up, excellent. Here is a question, good question in the chat box. What is the difference between the lead-in and warm-up? Warm-up can be any activity that you can, as teachers, you can use at the very beginning of the lesson to make students' minds move from the Arabic lesson or the history lesson to the English lesson. While the lead-in must be connected to the title of the lesson. For example, if we're going to discuss sports, so I can ask students, what's your favorite sport? Where do you practice sport? How often do you go to the club? Do you go to the club with your family, with your friends? Something like that. And it's a good idea to make personification. Make personification means that make the title or relevant to the student's life. This will help them a lot to be engaged with you. Okay, as you mentioned, let's see. The first thing is, of course, the objectives, and these objectives must be smart. Do you know what are smart objective you can write? What does the S refer to? Yes, specific, not be generalized, to be specific. Well, and M for measurable, can be measured through exams, through discussions, the questions, the classes. Yes. And what about A? Achievable. Yes, can be achieved, not something unattainable. No, something can be achieved, relevant to the curriculum, to the topic of the lesson. And I can see T as time bound. Okay. A clearly defined objective will help you. We can write by the end of this lesson, students will be able to do so and so. And you can mention adverb at the end of means accurately, perfectly, something like this. And what about the needs analysis? Do we need to have a kind of needs analysis at the very beginning of the year? Yes, it's very important. At the first lesson, the first class, we can set some classroom norms. The classroom to help you in managing we can call it, as you mentioned in the chat box, classroom norms or classroom contract, the rules that you and your students agree on, both of you. And it's preferable that these rules come from your students to make them agree and be responsible of the rules, and make them active and eager to carry out these rules and not to break these rules. Needs analysis is important to help you to know what exactly students need, to understand their proficiency level, their interests, their needs for the students in the beginning of the lesson, to address these needs and interests to maximize engagement and learning. Okay, the materials and resources are important because this will help you to select some teaching materials like textbook, dictionaries, worksheets, some audios, and help students to some realia. Yes, as you mentioned, ensure materials that are relevant to the lesson, to make students responsible for the learning process and make them ready to search and do the research themselves, not to spoon-feed the students with all the lesson, but let them be responsible and in charge of the process by giving them a hint of the resources needed for them for self-study. Lesson structure. How can we structure the lesson? First, we write the warm-up, and we mentioned that the warm-up is activity to make students engaged, make them engage in the lesson, to prepare them, to activate them, to prepare them for the lesson. And we can call it lead in if it's relevant to the lesson itself. So it will activate, we can call it schemata to activate the prior knowledge. Then we have the presentation, which we will introduce the new vocabulary and new structure, grammatical items, and it's preferable to be taken from the listening, the context they are going to adhere in the lesson. Either it will be either listening or reading. And then practice, and we have two kinds of practice. Practice, guided practice. This will be some kinds of drills, activities with the help of the teacher. Some exercises, control the practice with the help of the teacher. And then the production, it's very important to let students produce something. It will be either a dialogue in speaking, for example, or something for writing. Well, give free hand. The teacher can take a step back and let the students express themselves, their ideas. Let them express the language freely in more communicative activities like role plays, discussions, or projects, posters, design posters, and talk about these posters. Do some give some presentations after finishing the poster. This will help them a lot to use the language that they learned. Review is important to recap and assessment. Recap the main ideas discussed in the lesson, the key points, assess understanding through quizzes, feedback, or informal checks. Then we have timing, of course, we have timing. we should allocate certain time for each part of the lesson to make sure that the transitions and the coverage of all the planned items and activities and make it flexible and ready to adjust this timing based on the students' needs, the responses, their understanding of the lesson, their questions. Then we have differentiation, and differentiation is an important element that we can take into consideration. What do you think of differentiation? I want you to write anything you know about the word differentiation. Yes, vary the activities. Yes, various activities to suit different styles of learning. Okay, and this will help us to discuss the different styles of learning. What do you know about these styles? Yes, we have visual, excellent. What else? Audio learners, musical, excellent. Linguistics. Yes, some students are perfect at using the language. Audio, they learn better by listening to the teacher. Visual, they like to see something, watch a video, for example, pictures, realia in front of their eyes to help them understand the lesson. Yes. Kinesthetic, who like to learn by doing something by their hands. Nature, they learn when they are close to nature. Excellent, excellent. What else? Yes, they have mathematical proficiency. Some students are perfect at using numbers and figures. So they are good at math. Yes. Doing experiments, they can be kinesthetic because they learn by doing things by their hands. Yes. So the teacher should plan different activities to suit all these kinds of learning, these styles, to make sure that students comprehend the lesson. And sometimes we find the same student can learn by different ways, different styles of learning. Plan for varied activities to cater the different learning styles and abilities. Include tasks that can be modified. Sometimes we need to modify or adjust some activities for students who are fast finishers, for example, who may need more help, more support, some additional challenges. Be ready as teachers to suit all these challenges. What about classroom management? How can we manage the classroom, if, particularly if we have classrooms of high numbers of students, large classrooms? By excellent, by setting a classroom norms from the beginning of the year. Yes, excellent. What else? Let students express these rules to be able to not to break, to obey these rules all the time. Remind them, yes, put them on a chart from the very beginning of the year, yes. These rules will be agreed on from the students. What about the layout of the students? Can the organization of the classroom itself help students to speak, to discuss certain topics rather than the traditional layout of the classroom? Yes, if they sit in circles, but this will be for small classrooms. Okay, let's see. To establish clear rules and routines to maintain an orderly and focused learning environment. Plan for transitions between activities to minimize downtime and keep students engaged. And please decrease the TTT, teaching talking time, to help students express themselves and let them allocate certain time for themselves to speak, to student talking time to increase in the production stage of the lesson. Interaction patterns. We have individuals. Sometimes you ask students to write down some sentences or answer some drills individually, sometimes in pairs and in groups. To mix all these activities together and whole class activities. Encourage student interaction to promote a communicative practice and peer learning. Okay. What about the feedback and assessment? Feedback, but is feedback important? Of course, we have different kinds of feedback. Feedback from the teacher, student feedback when the teacher gives his or her opinion on on the response of the student. And what else? Peer feedback when the students give feedback to each other. Sometimes we ask students to exchange their notebooks to see the mistakes of each others and correct them. And self-feedback, which means that the student himself or herself read what they wrote and discover the mistakes that to try to find out the mistakes they had made. Yes. Feedback is very important. Provide timely and constructive feedback. And we should take into consideration the sandwich technique. When you give feedback to students, you should praise the students first, give the positive points at the beginning. Then we give the point that you want to criticize. Then you praise again the student to make them accept your feedback without being disappointed or embarrassed, to accept this and be eager to implement this in and try to adjust the problems that he or she faced. Provide timely and constructive feedback to students on their performance. So formative assessment can be at the beginning of the lesson to judge their performance, their understanding, and inform future instruction. Reflection and flexibility. When you reflect on the effectiveness of the lesson and see if which we can call self-assessment, we can see and note what worked well and what could be improved. To be prepared to adapt your lesson plan on the spot based on students' needs and responses. You can send me some models of lesson plan according to your handout or preparation notebooks, and we can discuss the problems that you faced in your lesson plan.